I organize through regulation, prioritizing enjoyment, and Marley, if you have those two things, your brain knows what to do. Like, we're not stupid. We're so smart. Like, the people I work with, I'm like, you're all so cool, so smart, so interesting. And there's just this dysregulation kind of hindering all this root truth that we have that's so great. So, as a regulated person, when you're just calm and present and your prefrontal cortex is turned on, and you're able to think logically and prioritize and slow down and maybe take 5 minutes at the beginning of the day. Okay, what does my day look like? Where are my tasks? Where might my tasks fit? Okay, I'm going to have a realistic expectation for myself. I'm not trying to do 10,000 things because I'm not in a frantic rush.
Hey everyone, I'm Megs, and you're listening to the Mindful Megs podcast, Organizing an ADHD Brain, where you will hear stories from me and others on how we organize both our brains and our lives while living with ADHD. We talk about how ADHD can be your superpower if you know how to harness it. I found out I had ADHD 2 years ago, and it was very difficult for me to find acceptance. Now that I know so much, I want to share what I know and help others understand that this diagnosis is not your downfall. It's a eureka moment where you can now understand how your brain operates and how to figure out how to thrive. You can expect to feel inspired, like you're not alone, and learn about so many of the incredible organizational tools there are to help your head stay on straight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Jenna. I have been practicing so many of the techniques, and by so many, she literally just talked about being present in the moment. What a profound experience it's been since I interviewed her. This was just last Friday, and now it's Wednesday. I'm dropping it two. It's been pretty fascinating to focus on being present. I say this because I thought as I'm interviewing her, and you can even hear it, it's like, I'm so regulated. I'm so great at this. I'm so glad you're telling other people because they need to hear it. Except I needed to hear it. It doesn't mean that I haven't done a lot of work towards it. I do yoga, helps me stay regulated. But literally, I was doing the dishes the other day, and instead of rushing through it or trying to get it done or being just annoyed that I had to get through it in general, I focused on being present and in the moment. And it was kind of fascinating how it didn't feel so overwhelming when I'm done. I was just a little proud of myself and cleaning up. It felt really good to walk around and clean up things. And again, I was just present in the moment, not thinking about everything that I had to do, but just doing one thing at a time, which is what I preach to my children too. Even last night when I was tucking in my daughter, my 7-year-old fights it. She's procrastinating sleep, as some of us do. And it was really cool because I started doing some of the somatic exercise. I think it's called somatic, but some of the exercise to focus on being in the present. And I learned that from my guest 2 weeks ago, Faith Hoskins. She had done a presentation on being present in the moment. And I'm going to show you on YouTube here, but one of the exercises I did was I held my daughter's hand and I talked to her about, like, how do mommy's fingers feel in your hand? And does it feel cold or warm? Does it feel soft or scratchy? I started to focus on that. And then I ran her through a body relaxation exercise where I talked about, okay, relax your toes and relax your feet, and so on and so on and so on. She was asleep before we even got done. And normally she fights it a little bit longer, but it was really neat to help her practice being in the moment. She's 7. I can't even imagine having this kind of a tool when I was 7. It doesn't mean that she knows that she can go to it whenever. It's going to take a lot of reminding and implementing, but it's been fascinating doing this podcast because I have met so many incredible women who have owned their ADHD and found ways to conquer it and found ways to live a life where they're thriving. And it's not about, we also talk in this episode about people saying, well, I feel like everyone has ADHD nowadays. I've been interviewing people over the last couple of weeks and asking them, what's your take on that? Tell me about when people say, I feel like everyone has ADHD. What does that look and feel like to you? And how do you go about answering that? It's pretty fascinating. I can't wait to hear what you think of this episode. We're going to pick right up where I left off in episode 1. So enjoy. Heck yes.
Like in
Oh
the
my
scheme of
gosh.
things. I obviously have little
Yeah,
things where I'm like, forget
of
stuff.
course.
But it's like, that's just
Yeah.
peanuts. Like, that's so nothing.
Yeah. You posted a video the other day about actually taking time to go to the bathroom. This is so relevant because we often put off these things where we take care of our bodies, but we're like, oh, let me just finish this email as you were talking about. And the first thing I said, well, what if I forget? What if I forget what I was doing? And you're
Yeah.
like, but you're going to say, what if you forget? And if you're regulated, you won't. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how dare you? But I loved what you said because oftentimes we are so go, go, go because we know if we don't do it now,
Mhm.
it's not going to happen. Or
Yeah.
it's not going to happen until I remember a month later. And I'm like,
Mhm.
shoot, now if I don't do that now, then it's
Mhm.
not going to happen. But I do find as I'm putting in the work to be more mindful on a regular basis, I do get way more done and not in a
Mhm.
way that's frantic, but in a way that
Exactly.
just makes sense for myself, my family. And oh my gosh, your words are so powerful.
Mhm.
And thank you for saying about the superpower too, because I think my brain is fascinating. The things that I can come up with and I'm still learning to use my voice in a way where I can show up authentically because the things I think of up here, I'm just like, "Oh, if I could communicate that, that would be
Yeah.
so incredible." So I'm working through that aspect of things, taking what's up here and really effectively putting it
Yeah.
out there so that I can show up as who I really am and all of these beautiful thoughts that I have. So tell us about how do you organize your day in a way that makes sense for you? What helps you organize your brain? Now, I say organize because I just feel like when
Mhm.
you're regulated or when you know where things are or you simplify things,
Mhm.
you know where to go for the things that you need as
Mhm.
emotions come up, as your
Mhm.
day throws things at you that you weren't necessarily prepared for.
Yeah. I organize through regulation, prioritizing enjoyment, and Marley, if you have those two things, your brain knows what to do. Like, we're not stupid. We're so smart. Like, the people I work with, I'm like, you're all so cool, so smart, so interesting. And there's just this dysregulation kind of hindering all this root truth that we have that's so great. So, as a regulated person, when you're just calm and present and your prefrontal cortex is turned on, and you're able to think logically and prioritize and slow down and maybe take 5 minutes at the beginning of the day. Okay, what does my day look like? Where are my tasks? Where might my tasks fit? Okay, I'm gonna have a realistic expectation for myself. I'm not trying to do 10,000 things because I'm not in a frantic rush. I know things will eventually get done. Let me just do do do. That's all my clients say. They hear me in their head like do do do, just doing the thing. Now I'm doing the next
Yes.
thing. Like, that's the cadence we want for life. It's just like this nice little slow march through life, consistently chugging along. Part of that might be a lunch break. Part of that might be a little lay down. It's not saying we have to work all the time, but it's just this gentle rhythm to life that's sustainable. Like, I can work the way I'm working for 10 more years. I don't have dread about that. Whereas prior in my other business, I was like, I'm going to just, I'm hanging on by a thread. And there's no way to live. What the heck? Like, it's just passing it by and we're just trying to get the next thing done so we can get it over with. And then eventually you look up and 10 years has passed and you've gotten 10 years over with and your life is passing you by. And so it's just such an important work, this kind of bigger picture stuff and slowing down so that you then can be organized. And that's why I like this work, is because you just do it and see what happens. Regulate and I want to see what happens. Like, it's not, okay, now I got to be really organized and thoughtful. And we're not white knuckling it. We're changing kind of the foundation and then seeing what grows from there. And that's what I have found. I have not been meticulous about work. I have not been like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, scheming and really thinking, okay, what's my next step? I'm just going with the flow. And it's been so successful because I'm not fighting against my brain or in a dysregulated state where I'm not being thoughtful. It's like slow, steady, do the next thing that makes sense as it comes, being more present. And that has created so much flow. So it's like more success, but it comes easier. So whether anyone is a 9 to 5, is a at-home parent, whatever you work at all day, if you do it in a regulated way, your entire experience of it is going to be totally different. It's so cool.
I love that. And as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, but what do you do? Like, what's your 1 step and then 2 step and then 3 step? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what she's saying, like, not to necessarily do. But
Yeah.
do you have a routine that you follow regularly that helps you stay regulated?
I mean, no, my work that I teach is mostly like in the moment regulation. So when I like even now, I'll notice, wow, I'm rushing to wash the dishes. Oh, okay. Slow down. That's the work I
Mm.
teach. Is like in the moment, are you identifying where you're dysregulated and dropping straight into doing something about it? This isn't about meditating for an hour. This isn't about yoga. This isn't about like not this manufactured, but like all kind of a manufactured moment of regulation. I want us to be able to regulate when my kids are screaming. I want to be able to regulate when I'm washing the dishes. I want to be able to regulate when I'm on a call with somebody. I don't need to be able to regulate in a nice, warm yoga class where some woman's talking to me in a soothing voice. Yeah, I'm going to be able to be calm in that space. But can I be in my logical mind and in a place that's regulated and calm day to day, moment to moment as I do life? Which is why this works also great because it's no, we're not adding anything to anyone's to-do list. I'm not adding more to your life. There's nothing on you. There should be nothing like written down in your calendar that you have to do when I do this work with people. It's simply carrying this with you as you do the life you're already living. So, even I'll still have stuff come up. Like I was late for an appointment. I noticed I was getting a bit frazzled and I was like, okay, you know, just because I'm late, my stomach being in my throat's not going to help. Taking a deep
Yeah.
breath. I was kind of rushing to the car and I stopped and I walked in a nice pace, got in the car, put my music on, enjoyed the 10-minute drive to the appointment. It's going to be a 10-minute drive, whether I'm freaking out or whether I'm calm. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
chill, enjoy my music, sing along to my songs very loudly, have some fun, and I'll get there when I get there. And then in the end, I was there on time, which is funny. I think a lot of times we freak out and it's actually fine.
Yeah.
So that's the work, is kind of in the moment, living in this way. And at first, it starts in just little blips, right? You might do it a couple times for 10 seconds. Great. But then those blips grow and grow and grow, and it spreads where soon the dysregulation really sticks out because you're actually more regulated than you are dysregulated.
That's fascinating because I continuously say, oh my gosh, my inner self talk or catastrophizing a situation is doing no one any good,
Mm-hmm.
particularly me, because it comes
Yeah.
with all of these emotions. And so instead of thinking about the past and all of these things I've been told, or thinking about the future and how bad things could happen, just staying right here with my brain and saying, I am exactly where I need to be in this moment. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get there safely. Everything is okay. I can continue to enjoy life and I don't
Yeah.
need to worry about what's happening on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that because I think I know that, especially when I talk to people with ADHD and myself, is I can sometimes ruminate on the past
Mm-hmm.
or get too caught up in the future that I'm never here. And
Yeah.
so okay, so tell me though, how does one regulate when their kids are throwing temper tantrums?
That's the hardest. Like that's the thing I'm still actively like that's the thing that'll trigger me the most and dysregulate me the most with this current phase of life. So
Yeah,
it's just being aware of it. I'm aware that their screaming is not about them screaming, it's about the feelings that the dysregulation is creating in me, and my reaction is because of me. It's not because of them. But even having
yeah,
that awareness is like I might still get impatient, I might still be snippy, but I can catch myself and be like, sorry, like I just need a minute,
yeah.
or I take a deep breath and at least let them be screaming, but I'm not also yelling on top of it. So I mean, that part for me still work in progress, but the day to day, like getting up in the morning, working, taking care of kids, having fun, doing stuff, doing life, taking care of my house, that is in it is pretty steadily at a one thing, now I'm doing the
My
next.
gosh, I love this.
And so like that's what I'm going for. But then of course there's going to be heightened moments where I'm still like, oh, I'm feeling the dysregulation and I need to grapple with this for a little bit to kind of come back down. But in those moments, simple tools like taking a deep breath, noticing how you're rushing, even that from when I'm talking fast, when I take a breath and take a second, my body, the energy feels different. It's a bit softer. My favorite tool is just slowing down. So if you're physically rushing, stop yourself and then continue at a reasonable pace. So you're running down the hallway to your meeting, stop. I don't care. That 30 seconds to get there is not worth that dysregulation. Like,
Yeah.
if we got to really have in our minds, if you want to do this work, like someone said, so you're saying stay regulated at all costs. I'm like, essentially, like that has to be the most important thing because we're rewiring the brain to function in a whole new way. So you got to do it again and again. Your brain's going to have reasons. Well, I'm in a rush. Well, so I have to rush, or I'm late. So I have to go faster, run, or there's so much to do. I have to be frantic. It's such a crazy week at work. I'll work on this next week. You will always find a reason that you need to be frantic and be rushing because that's also what we've tied to this feeling of productivity. If I'm doing it in a nice, even keeled way, I'm not working hard enough. And then it's a whole thing. So there's lots to rework. But even if everyone who's listening to this just started by when you notice you're rushing for any reason, stop for a second, then continue at a reasonable pace. So dishes, it's like, I just want to get this over with so I can go lay down. It's like, no, okay, stop. Okay, I'm just here, present with the dishes, washing them. This is just much a part of life as going and laying down is. So let me just be here.
Yeah.
And that's how we retrain the brain and body to pretty much say you're safe. You can just be here. There's no bear chasing you. Everything's fine. Then you can just be, and then you just do. And then the idea of, wow, I did the dishes and I did the laundry and I vacuumed. You're not exhausted from it because you haven't exerted 1,000% more energy just stressing about it and being frantic about it. You just simply did the tasks. It's not the tasks that exhaust us. It's the way we do them. It's the dysregulation we have around them that is like so draining and exhausting and overwhelm and all of that.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. When I was working with my therapist, she did not have ADHD. And there was one thing that she said to me. She said that I was doing so much that maybe I just shouldn't be anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got so annoyed at her that I was like, we're done. How dare you tell me that one, I can't do it all and that I shouldn't be doing it all because by her saying that, I didn't have a picture of what that looked like or what that meant to me. And I was even talking to someone that I love so much, and they were telling me that they just experienced a loss in their life. We're going through grief in our family right now. And they said, I don't know how to slow down. I don't know what that looks like because go, go, go just means that I can get on to the next task and it keeps me going. And I was like,
well, it's dysregulating to feel grief. And so it soothes that dysregulation to go, go, go. That's another thing. It's like learning how to sit with the dysregulation and be with discomfort and not use something external to soothe it is going to be such a lifesaver because that's why we scroll. That's why we shop. That's why we eat. That's why we distract ourselves and are running around all evening when you could be resting. But no, I'm fidgeting around the house all night because we're unable to sit for a second because there's dysregulation and we don't know how to internally work on it. So that's what we learn in the work I do. How do I calm this down internally myself so that I'm not reliant on a phone? So I'm not reliant on spending money to soothe me for 2 minutes and then I feel guilty after. Like those things aren't helping. It's just masking it for a second. But this primal fight or flight part of us, it's survival mode. It only cares about you feeling better right now. It just wants to survive. It does not care that your future self is going to pay for it. It honestly doesn't. It's just trying to get through the day. Similar to someone who, I'm going to steal because I'm starving. I don't really care if I'm going to go to jail later. I need food now. Like you don't care about, you just care about the now because you're just trying to not die. Well, that's what the dysregulation is like, this is so uncomfortable. I'm feeling unsafe. I'm feeling like my life is in danger. And I get that people are like, I don't feel like that. Well, not consciously, but that's what the body's functions are feeling. And so, I don't care if I really should be doing my work. I'm going to scroll for 2 hours because that's making me feel better. That's kind of soothing this discomfort or distracting from this discomfort. And then 2 months later, you go, why the hell am I always on my phone? I'm so frustrated. It's not even a choice. It's compulsive at this point. This is not a conscious choice. And so when we're feeling like the things we're doing is compulsive, we have no choice. That's when you know dysregulation is present. because your subconscious is then doing things to make you feel better because you're not consciously aware that you're dysregulated and then working on regulation. If you consciously work on regulating, the subconscious doesn't need to go for the phone and the spending and the food and the substances in order to, I'm not saying addiction, but I'm just saying, like, if you're in the habit of, oh, I, smoke at night to calm myself down, is that just dysregulation? And you're just using something external to regulate you temporarily or soothe that dysregulation, when we could actually do some bigger picture work where you don't need that. You could choose to do that, and that could be a conscious choice of something you enjoy. But when it feels compulsive, that's when we know, oh, I mean, nobody wants that. I don't want things
No,
to feel compulsive. I want to feel like I'm choosing. Even if I'm choosing to scroll, even if I'm choosing to eat a snack, if I'm choosing to spend money, I want it to be my conscious mind's choice, not like, shit, why did I do that? Like, that's such a bad feeling.
it's like, well, first, how dare you call us all out? And also, thank you, because so much of that resonated with me. And I know so many of my listeners, aside from being mindful in that moment, say processing grief where it's very dysregulated. What's step one? How do you work on being okay with
Mm.
the uncomfortable?
Yeah. I do think that sometimes it just takes doing it, right? So being aware of, like, I see, so say your friend that is like, oh, I'm aware that I'm running around and busy because this is uncomfortable. Well, then it might be when you're ready to challenge that. I'm not saying you have to do it immediately. When you're ready to, okay, I don't want to have to, this is compulsive at this point. I don't want to have to, I want to be able to rest. I don't want to be running around constantly all the time, making myself busy work to avoid these feelings. Okay, so I'm going to choose to sit for 10 minutes and just work on taking some deep breaths to calm my body down and show myself that I won't die. Honestly, is like,
Brilliant.
this discomfort will not kill me, but if I'm running around masking it, how am I ever going to know that? So obviously that's kind of a bigger example, but even this idea of, like, oh, my heart's racing fast and I'm running around frantically. Okay, I'm going to choose to stop, and it might still be uncomfortable for a bit, but okay, let me continue this at a slower pace. And that might be uncomfortable, but it's just showing your brain and body, hey, look, oh, I had an effect there. That was,
It did fireworks behind you. I think it's like you could do hand motions now in Zoom
yeah,
and
I
it
know.
does like I
Yes. Okay. See, and then that distracted my ADHD brain.
yeah.
But yeah, being able to settle it down internally, and takes a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. So although it's very simple and something that I hope people can carry with them and not have to be like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's pretty easy. It's not complex, but it takes a lot of repetition. So that person might sit for 5 minutes and then they're back being busy again. Well, great. Well, at least they kind of did a little blip. They kind of tweaked it a little bit. They challenged it a little bit. So you might be rushing around all day and you didn't rush for 2 minutes that day. Amazing. That's a great start. We have to get those little drops of regulation, feel what that's like. And then you start remembering what that felt like. And then you start growing, and then you build this capacity for yourself to live in that way. And then you start seeing the benefits of living that way. And then it starts happening more and more and more, where soon you just feel like, wow, I feel really regulated. Obviously, I'm going to have things that happen that dysregulate me. But even in those moments, I have the tools, I have the awareness to calm it down very quickly. Like at this point, when I'm dysregulated, I can like it smacks me right in the face. I feel it so strongly, and I
Yeah.
can come right back down. Whereas that used to just be my state of being. It didn't feel weird because it was normal.
Yeah.
Now regulation and kind of being present and calm feels more normal. So when I'm dysregulated, it really sticks out. And then it's like
Ooh.
so easy to work on it because it's not hiding.
That is huge. And I appreciate you saying it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 2 minutes, maybe even 30 seconds. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we feel like we have to be perfect, right? Okay, well, if I'm going to be regulated, then I want to do it perfect. Then I
Mm-hmm.
want
You
to
will not.
now be regulated to the point, but it's a practice. It is
Yeah.
a one step at a time, itsy bitsy teeny weeny step in the right direction,
Yeah. You
in the
build
direction.
those skills. It's a building skill. It happens over time with repetition. And then part of this regulating work, is also regulating our thinking, right? Because all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, we need flexible thinking. So even that is part of it, right? Of like being
Yeah.
flexible with, oh, I could try implementing this stuff And it might just be like a little drop in the ocean to start. That's okay. Right. It's not all or nothing. We want to challenge that thinking as well because it's also not balanced.
Absolutely. I love the way that you talked about the belief system too,
Mm-hmm.
in that a lot of the times we might be rushing because we believe if we don't, others may look at us differently. It comes back to
Mm-hmm.
the people pleasing tendencies and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I want to know, how do you view your ADHD as a superpower?
Mm-hmm. I see that I see things differently. I almost feel like, tons of people are standing over there looking at it from that way. I'm way over here looking at it from a totally different way, sharing about
Mhm.
what I see. And people are like, oh my God, my mind is blown. Like, and I love that. I love that I can see things, after working with people for hundreds of hours. It's like I've put this all together and created these observations just from talking to people and making connections and seeing similarities and kind of it just like and then it comes to me and then I create visuals and people are like, oh my God, I've never understood what was happening to me. And now I put it into a graphic that's like, oh, like I have a whole graphic of procrastination isn't really a thing. It's actually a cycle of avoidance. So I have this like graphic that shows all the steps of this cycle of avoidance we get stuck in and how that's related to dysregulation and what we can do to challenge that and get out of it. And that's just such a superpower. This isn't like me sitting trying to really logically figure it out. It's just like the brain creates the connections and it's just, I see it. And I think that's so cool. And everyone who's listening has their superpowers, but if you're very dysregulated and struggling, I totally get that those might be under the surface at the moment. So you might be like, ugh, good for you. You have a superpower. I'm
Right.
struggling, but it's there. It just maybe hasn't totally been able to come out and show itself because the dysregulation is masking all that cool stuff.
And part of that is working with a therapist, working with some of the trauma that you may have been through. It's understanding how to regulate, what it looks like, what it feels like,
Mm,
all of that.
yeah.
And
And it's tricky though, because if you work with someone on that stuff who doesn't have ADHD, it's a different thing. Like when the work
oh,
I do for regulation is not what, someone who's working with a trauma patient would do for regulation. Mine's very ADHD focused, very ADHD language, specifically how the ADHD brain works and understanding it. And you don't have to identify with having trauma. You don't have to identify with any of that because I don't particularly identify like, yeah, I've had trauma and that's why I'm dysregulated. I just knew I was dysregulated. And sometimes I think that language is important because if you don't identify it with
cool.
it, it's hard to like latch on and really see yourself in it. It's a bit tricky, but
But good, because everyone has this own version of what ADHD is happening to them, and
yeah,
understanding that you don't have to have trauma, but you can still do the work is beneficial, just seeing it from a different perspective.
yeah, just knowing I'm dysregulated, just knowing, yeah, I'm in this cycle of being frantic and rushing and then I crash. That's all you need to identify with to work on it.
What do you say to people who say, I just feel like everyone has a little bit of ADHD?
Well, I would just go, okay, like in real, but there's already that saying out there. It's like, yeah, well, everyone pees, but when you're peeing 100 times a day, there's a bigger problem. It's like, yeah, everyone's
Mm,
gonna get distracted, everyone's gonna be rushing, everyone's gonna do this. But I mean, in my eyes, you kind of know when you know. Like I knew. I have friends who think like I relate to senior post, but I know I don't have it. Like I know myself. So anyone a lot of people work with me who are not yet diagnosed, and I'm sure 99.9% of them will get a positive diagnosis. If you really think you have it, where you're going seeking out an ADHD coach and doing their program, I'm pretty sure you've got it. Like you are
right.
connecting enough and struggling enough and like having a hard enough time that you're like, yeah, this is what's up. Like people who are like, oh, identify with that one symptom, that's not you. It's different. It's a different thing. It's like a whole network of issues that we struggle with that's not like, oh, yeah, I have a hard time focusing. Like that's not in itself ADHD. Or I'll even do posts about like a small part of ADHD. Like I have a post about like how showering I find difficult or
Yeah.
like it's draining. And people are like, this doesn't mean you have ADHD. I'm like, I'm not saying that one thing means you have ADHD. I'm saying I'm sharing a symptom of mine as someone with
Right.
diagnosed ADHD who has a large plate of symptoms that show up for me. It's not one thing. So I think just realizing like a symptom does not make a diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's much more complex than that.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, because it's been coming up a lot. And then I got locked into a Reddit thread just recently. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so much information out here.
Yeah.
especially with a lot of women getting late diagnosis.
Oh,
And
totally.
so, gosh, this has been amazing. Thank
Thank
you so much
you.
for your time and your expertise. Where can people come find you and work with you when they're
Yeah.
ready to get regulated?
Yeah, so on social media, I'm at ADHD with Jenna Free. I'm hosting a workshop on June 11th called ADHD at Work, where we'll be talking about regulating and all this stuff at work. So people can check that out. I also have groups that I run. Those reopen June 26th. So that's 6 sessions over 8 weeks in a small group of 7. And we dive in and go through all of this work. So you really have a strong foundation of kind of finding your flow and living well in a way that's enjoyable and sustainable with ADHD. And yeah, that's kind of the main stuff I have at the moment going on.
That's brilliant. And I love that you focus on the at work stuff too, because I
Yeah.
left the corporate world. I needed to,
Mm-hmm.
but now that I've focused so much on my own regulation, now I'm the yoga person and like meditation and I set timers, but this is helpful to know that I don't necessarily have to do that, just
Mm.
being more in the present. But I
Yeah.
just appreciate that there's hope for people in the workforce too, because a lot of people with
Totally.
ADHD are entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
but that's not the answer for everyone, nor does it have to
exactly.
be. It
Yeah.
doesn't just mean that there's one path, there's multiple paths, and there's answers at any path you decide to
Yes,
take.
totally.
That
And I
is
did also want to share, I do have a free ADHD regulation guide people can grab at
excellent.
adhdwithjennafree.com/ADHD guide. So that is something where if people want to just go like, I want to know more of what that's about, that's a free thing they can grab.
So good. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank
being here
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that episode was fascinating and beautiful. And one of my favorite parts was when I asked her how to stay regulated during a temper tantrum. And she's like, well, we all need to work on that. Something I've been looking at differently with my own kids' temper tantrums is, oh my gosh, this isn't directed at me. They are dysregulated and they're trying to figure out a way where they haven't gotten something and they have to be okay with not getting the thing that they need or want. And they don't understand. And it's our job to help them understand. And it's hard when you get triggered and all you want to do is just react because that's all you know. That's all I've ever known is to react in certain situations. Please go check out Jenna Free. She is brilliant. I love watching her videos as she's trying something new in her own ADHD world. She is a brilliant example of how we're constantly evolving and changing and understanding new things about our brains and our bodies so that we can thrive.
Oh, I did this new feature on the podcast platform that I use where you can actually send me a text message. So if you scroll down to the show notes, you can click a little button and it'll send me a text. Share your thoughts. It's so easy because there's a button for it. So cool. I mean, there's other ways to get in touch with me in the show notes too, but try it out. I'm so curious how it works. And I would love to post a text message that I get. So you guys are amazing. Thank you for all of your feedback. I have been hearing some beautiful, beautiful things about the podcast. So thank you. It keeps me going. If you would like to support the podcast in any way, shape, or form, please consider joining my Patreon account where I'll post some additional content and some wise words from me, if you will. Join my Facebook page, like and share this podcast with whomever you think could benefit. I also have this amazing woman who is my friend. She owns a small batch skincare business in Colorado, and I have been using her CBD bath bombs forever. And my code, I have a code that you can use to save 10%. If you use that code, you can order bath bombs for yourself and have it sent to you. I actually just had my father order the direct pain cream, and it is incredible. I use it for cramps, and he used it for his knee that was giving him a ton of pain. And he looked at me after he put it on. First, I had to promise him he's not going to get high, right? And he laughed at me, but also I think he was relieved that I confirmed that for him. But he looked at me and he was like, I can't believe this is working right now. He's taking aspirin, he's taking all of these other things to try to get the pain to diminish in any way. And this direct pain cream works. So check it out. Use my code to save money and you can have it shipped to you. So it doesn't matter where you are. Additionally, me and my husband use HelloFresh
I'm not sponsored by them in any way. So these are literally just free boxes that we can give away. So I put a code down in the show notes below. If you sign up for a free box, then we get to feed our family for a week for free. So thank you so much for supporting us. And you get to eat as well. So how about that? What a world we get to live in. If nothing else, just thank you for participating and listening.